Okay, everybody, we're here. Another week. Game week 3. The Mocofootball.com weekly podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Grant, with my man, Damon Anderson again. Damon, with an exciting week last week. We had some interesting games. We're going to start off with the game of the week. Sherwood versus Blair. This was actually kind of an interesting outcome. We were talking about this game last week. This was a game that Blair was looking forward to since the offseason. And they really played Sherwood really, really tough. In fact, a lot of people that went to that game felt like Blair had plenty of opportunities to win the game. I went to the game. I felt like Sherwood, they're still a team to be reckoned with going forward. But with that being said, they also have things that they need to work on too. Blair is clearly a different kind of Blair. They're not the same Blair. They're not your mom and pop's Blair, needless to say. But Blair scored first, set the tone with a jump ball on fourth down in the end zone, the corner end zone. They got that. But from that point on, really, Sherwood's defense really stepped up and stopped them. And it was a defensive battle. Ended up being 14-7. Sherwood picked off a ball at the end of the game. And I just feel like it had more to do with Blair being a little bit better than we thought than Sherwood not being what we thought. I think that, I'm a Sherwood fan. I feel like I was actually pleased by what I saw. I didn't see anything there that I was too concerned with. I would like to see more production, maybe from the offensive line. But outside of that, I felt like Sherwood played a decent game. I just felt like Blair played a really good game, and they have better athletes on the field this year, and I feel like they played them tough. Now, from your perspective, when you looked at the score and you researched what happened, how do you feel about the game? Do you think it's more of a Blair thing or a Sherwood thing?
Yeah, definitely agree. The result was more of Blair being infinitely better than we thought they were going to be. They came in with a great game plan. They basically double-teamed Marcus Sims pretty much the whole game, held him without a catch. So Sherwood had to adjust on the fly, and it didn't take them long. It looked like they relied on the run a little bit more this week than they did last. And like you said, the defense held steady, especially in the second half. But with that being said, Blair, even though they lost the game, they can walk away with their heads held high, looking forward to next week versus Northwood and the rest of the season, knowing that they can hang and with just a few adjustments here and there, possibly beat some of the top teams in the county when it comes to 4A. They've made great strides over the years down there. I think this is just a glimpse of what we can expect moving forward for the Blaze. If there is a such thing as a good showing and a loss, I think this fits the bill.
Right.
Personally, I did not expect the score to be that close, but with that being said, that's taking nothing away from Sherwood. A victory is a victory. What I was surprised was neither team scoring in the second half, but that's just a testament to both teams' defensive coordinators. Looking at the stats and a few of the highlights, it was a strong defensive battle. It seems like Blair had a balanced attack in between rushing and receiving. On offense, they like to spread the ball around. Really don't know who's going to get the ball on any given play, so that's going to bode well from them moving forward. Looking at their schedule, I honestly don't see them having a loss until possibly week 10 when they play Whitman. And if that's the case, week 10 most likely will be a play-in game, if you will, for both of those teams to see who makes it into the playoffs in 4A. Overall, great game. Definitely lived up to the bill as the game of the week. Awesome game by both squads. Can't wait to see both of them play again, possibly later on.
They decided that Marcus Sims was not going to beat them. They had their best athlete. For the most part, they had the best athlete on them, and they had a safety over top. What Sherwood was trying to do was trying to go back to the other side of the field, and Sherwood also had a lot of drops, honestly. I remember 2 that would have been surefire touchdowns, right in the breadbasket. Just dropped them. Sherwood going forward, I think that they're going to look at that film and say, Blair's a tough team. Blair's a team that they got to be worried about. But at the same time, if we execute, we're looking at a 28-17 37-7, 35-7 kind of game. It would have been what everybody expected. So it's a part of the maturation process of a team. And, being dominant isn't easy. Blowing a team out isn't easy. Back in the day when Sherwood was blowing teams out, it wasn't because they would walk in there, waltz all over a team and get out. It was hard work. Beating a team by 40 something points, so you're going out, then you're earning it. And I think that what they need to understand is just because you got a Sherwood jersey, or just because you got a QO jersey, or just because you have a Seneca jersey on, does not guarantee you that you're going to be able to have a great performance. I think Coach Greer is going to instill that in them. Overall, Blair was in so many different formations, Damon. They used different personnel groupings. They're very multiple on offense. I mean, they were sometimes in the eye. They sometimes used some spread principles, some wishbone principles. I mean, option football. They sometimes put their best athlete in the backfield and let him run some option football. I mean, they did a lot of things on offense, and they moved the ball a little bit. It wasn't one of those things where they couldn't move the ball at all. They moved the ball a little bit on Sherwood. They really had a good grasp of what Sherwood was going to do at certain points, and they executed well. Going forward to the other game that we were kind of keeping an eye on, which was QO versus Whitman. You're at this game. Whitman ended up getting blown out. What did you think about Whitman? Because I remember last week we were kind of like, hey, this is a game that we're going to keep our eyes on and see if it might be something that Whitman might be a team that we might watch out for. Are you changing your opinion on that, or are you kind of staying packed on what you think it should be?
I'm going to stay pat with my preseason prediction with Whitman. Going into the season, this is a game I had pegged them to lose regardless. But being down in Gaithersburg at the Cougar Dome and seeing them up close in person, they were just basically overmatched from the opening kickoff. The game was over at halftime, basically. Quince Orchard was up 42-7 in third quarter. Quince Orchard basically had their 2s and 3s in the whole game, right. And they still held Whitman to a late fourth quarter bomb to the Brown commit Anton Casey, who had an excellent game regardless overall. 6 catches for 101 yards,
right?
And they were hard yards, They weren't going to give him anything deep, so they had to basically dump it out to him on the flat and let him do his thing, and he definitely did.
Right.
He is definitely the bright star on that squad, and my hat's off to him. He played an awesome game, even though the game was well out of hand by halftime. Casey and the Whitman players didn't quit. They showed a lot of heart and pride and continuing to battle for the entire game. With that being said, Whitman did have about 4 to 5 starters out. I don't want to make any excuses, because regardless of whether they would have played or not, I honestly believe the outcome would have been the same.
Right.
Over on the Quince Orchard side of the ball, they really impressed me. Going into this season, I was 100% convinced they were going to be, ground and pound, 3 yards, cloud of dust, running the ball 85% of the time. And they came out with, and I think Whitman believed that also. There were plays where it looked like they had 8 in the box, and they were literally daring Quince Orchard to pass on them. And that's exactly what they did. They had a nice 45-plus yard play action pass in the first quarter. Matter of fact, that was their first touchdown that opened everybody's eyes. I mean,
right.
I don't know if it's out there on YouTube or anything, but I had an opportunity to see the play after the game. It was a thing of beauty. I rewatched that play at least 5 times that night. I guess when you have a running back like Green in the backfield, you have to pay attention to him. And that just opens up the passing game and play action. Moving forward, this is something that Quince Orchard opponents, yet another thing that they're going to have to be concerned about, because the Quince Orchard quarterback, young Mr. Knight, had an excellent game. He's a really precise passer. There were a couple of balls that he had where initially, in my mind, I was saying, that's going to be picked off. And he put it where only his receiver could get it. Either it was going to be an incomplete pass or a 15-yard gain.
Right.
Quince Orchard's defense, as usual, was stout. McClain was in the backfield all night, harassing the Whitman quarterback. Overall, great game, and a nice 30-yard field goal in the fourth quarter, just to give teams another thing to worry about. Quince Orchard has a strong kicking game, so they can put points on the board multiple ways, obviously. But overall, it was a great game. Starters got some rest in the second half because they're going to need it, because potential game of the year is coming up next week at the Cougar Dome versus the Damascus Hornets.
Absolutely. And I believe that QO, if that kid at quarterback, I mean, if he can turn out to be, I mean, QO's not asking him to save the world. They're just asking him to do what's necessary. And if he continues to execute at the rate that he's executing right now, it's lights out. I don't really see how anybody could really beat them with that running game. And, Green in the backfield, and they're developing. And I think that what QO did basically was to simplify their scheme, simplify what they were doing, go to the guys that they believe are the key guys to go to. I think it's working out for them. They're relying on their defense, the same old QO football, relying on their defense, field position, kicking game. I think it was a good statement win for QO. For Whitman, it was clear that they're far away from competing at the highest of levels. They just don't have the horses right now. They have one or two kids that are really, really good and could probably start anywhere, but they don't have overall package, the overall depth to compete with the QO right now. And until they get, I don't think that they're going to ever be able to do that consistently without that kind of depth.
Can we touch on Seneca Valley Rockville right quick? Under the radar game last week was Seneca Valley Rockville. Both teams had a lot of questions that we wanted to see answered. For Seneca Valley, they had a quote-unquote lackluster performance against a pesky Wheaton team. Came out in the first half kind of rough, but got things fixed. And Rockville made a statement against Richard Montgomery in week one. So it was basically how Seneca Valley's offense, how were they going to do this week versus how Rockville's defense was going to be. And once again, Seneca Valley came out a little flat. They were down at halftime, 14-13 to Rockville. Again, when the messages started coming through, I was like, "Oh my goodness, this might be the pivotal moment in Rockville football history if they knock off Seneca Valley."
Yeah.
But with that being said, I don't know what Coach Kim says to those kids in the locker room at halftime, but it's obviously doing the job, because they came out just like they did in week one and looked like the Seneca Valley of old and shut down Rockville. Overall, they held Chuck Reese to about 230 yards passing, which is well below his average, and they shut them out in the second half. So, and they pulled away with a 36-14 victory. Adrian Felix-Platt had an awesome rushing game, 24 attempts, 130 yards. Zach Robinson managed the game relatively well in the passing aspect. The passing game seems to be the rough spot for Seneca. They're really relying on their rushing attack,
Right.
and which is literally the opposite of Rockville. I mean, they were just chucking the ball all over the field. I think they had 6 or 7 different receivers catching balls that night. At the end of the day, it still ended the way we pretty much thought it was going to be with the Seneca Valley victory. But again, going forward, I'm not sure about Seneca. It's going to be an interesting year, especially next week for the King's Trophy.
Yeah.
That's going to be real interesting. I said this last week against Rockville when they were going to play Rockville. They cannot come out flat and hope to win.
Right.
They proved me wrong, because they did come out flat, but they still got the W. But I guarantee you this: if they have a first half like that versus Northwest, unless they go into halftime and walk out with Chris Kelly, they can't. They're not going to beat Northwest.
Okay. I just don't know with Seneca right now. I'm really reserving judgment until after after Friday. I can't get a beat on them. I mean, they look like crap, honestly, for one half. The other half, they look like Seneca. Putting up, I mean, they literally, in the last 2 weeks, um, they've put up 35 points in a half. So, and you ask any team, would you take putting up 35 points in any half of any game? They would take it. They'll call that a successful game. A very successful game. In fact, the offense coordinator might get a raise or something. I don't know how they divvy up the stipends over there, but you know, I mean, any team would take a 35-point half, but you look at the other half, it's just atrocious. It's terrible. So I don't know what to. It could be because they're just looking at bad teams and they're underestimating them. It could be I don't know. I don't know what it is. So I'm just kind of reserving my judgment for after next week, because after next week, if they play Northwest tough, we can just surmise that the first 2 weeks they weren't taking their opponents seriously. They overlooked them, like some young teams may do. That's where I'm at with Seneca Valley, man. As far as Rockville, I honestly thought that this was the time, man. I thought that this was the crowning moment in the history of Rockville Rams football. I really did. And it was a good thing for them to go up early in the game. And I think that they saw that they can play with a Seneca Valley. And I think that's important for their psyche going forward, because they're going to have to face Damascus and teams like that. So I think that was a good thing for them. And a nice little feather in their cap, so that, when they're going to watch film, they can say, hey, we fixed this, we fixed that. We might be there. But I believe that Rockville played a lot better defense than they did last week, and definitely, last year. So that's another thing they can hang their hat on. If they can play defense like that for a half, let's see if they can carry it over for a whole game. All right, everybody, we're here with Jake Funk, running back, linebacker, safety, everything guy for Damascus, the guy that really sets the tone for the Hornets. And Jake, first and foremost, man, I just want to say I've heard so many great things about you. And, the biggest thing that I hear is your work ethic. Where do you get that from, and how do you think that helps set the tone for Damascus? And, overall, how do you think that really fits into the team?
First off, I think I get my work ethic from my parents and my older brother. My dad played college football at Penn State, and ever since I was little, he never let me be satisfied with something. Like last game, I had 4 touchdowns. He on 5 carries, and after the game, he said I did a good job and all, but he said a 4 out of 5 is a B. And he never, just things like that never let me be satisfied. And I always want to do more to get to where he's satisfied. And with my older brother, he pushes me too, because he played college lacrosse, and he knows what it takes to be at that next level.
Right.
He really set the bar, and he's really been a role model for me,
right,
in terms of my work ethic. And I think it really fits in Damascus' team. There's all the guys there. We all work hard. We all, ever since the summer, and all the guys been working hard in the weight room, out in the track running, doing all of our strength and agility drills, everything. We've all been working hard and just getting ready for a big test this Friday.
Okay, and I want to take you back to last year. You had a lot of people say that was your breakout game. Last year's Damascus versus QO. You had a pick. You had also a few other really big plays. Take us back to that game and what you remember from it. You guys ended up losing on a last-second field goal. Take us back to that game and how you felt going into the game, and did you feel like that was really like the coming out party for you?
Yeah, me being a sophomore, I was very nervous that whole week going up to the game. My first year on varsity, very nervous, knowing that QO had a lot of guys last year that were very good and went on and played college football. I thought last year we came in well prepared for that game, and our whole defense just played really well. I think we really stopped them pretty good.
Right.
And we just came up a little bit short on a block extra point, and then also we missed the field goal at the end of the game. So I just think we just came up a little bit short.
Right. Going into this off season, a lot of people, were saying that this might be one of the most talented Damascus teams to come through in a while. Obviously, you have yourself, Jalen Christian, guys like that on the team. Tell me how, in the early part of the season, how you guys been balancing the expectations of this season and how you guys have kind of went out and not really playing to live up to the expectations, but really just to play for each other and play for the coaches and everything like that.
We as a team didn't really, we try not to read all the hype and everything about that because we want the whole team not to get ahead of themselves.
Right.
We take it game by game, and we want to do big things this year, and we have big expectations for the team and the community that has big expectations for us as well. And we're just taking it game by game and seeing how it goes from there.
And you talked about the Damascus community and the legacy and everything like that. Damascus has had some really good running backs in the past. Are you aware of that? And do you try to compare yourself to those guys, or do you ever feel like you have a legacy to uphold by playing running back at Damascus?
Yeah, I do feel that. Going back to guys like Evan Zedler, Matt Reed, Brian Lucas, just Reed, those are the most recent guys. But just being a Damascus running back and the ground and pound offense that comes with Damascus, it's very, you get kind of a, I don't know how to say it, like a warm feeling, just trying to bring on that legacy that those guys put behind you and keep improving that legacy of Damascus running backs.
Right. And, taking you to this season, you guys faced, two teams that people would think that kind of inferior to you guys. You guys handled them pretty well. Do you kind of feel a little bit, not afraid, but a little bit worried about the fact that you haven't really necessarily gotten tested yet, and now you're facing a team that's really, really good? Or are you kind of like, hey, we did what we were supposed to do, and, it's one of those situations where we can't really control our schedule, so we're not going to even worry about that?
Yeah, I would say it's something where we can't really control our schedule. Like what you said, we did what we were supposed to do against those teams, expected to win big, and we did.
Right.
But going into QO, we're just all hyped up and just getting ready for a big test for our team.
Right.
We can see where we are in terms of how far we want to go this season. See where we are.
QO is a 4A school. They used to be a 3A school. Has that kind of dampened the rivalry? I know you guys want to beat them and prove that you guys are, one of the top teams in the county, of course, but the rivalry, the hatred for them, is it a little bit different now that you guys are not going to have to see them in the playoffs, or do you guys hate them the same way that you guys used to, back in the day?
I don't think it's dampened at all. I mean, it maybe a little bit because we don't play them in the playoffs anymore, but I still believe that rivalry is still there between us, just like it's with Seneca and us.
Right.
I still believe it. Every rivalry that we have is still there.
Right. Talking about QO overall, and talking about the matchup, what do you guys think of QO, just watching film on them and hearing about them?
I personally believe QO is a very good team. They got a great running back, a big line, big line.
Right.
And I think that we, as a team, just need to stop the run.
Right.
And if we can stop the
Right.
And, you got a guy, Kyle Green is a good running back.
Right.
And so, I mean, like we've been kind of comparing him to Ray Gray from Urbana this week, and how we're going to need to stop him just like we're going to have to stop Ray Gray as well.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, that kid's, Kyle has shown himself to be a top running back, along with yourself in this county. So, a huge test for you guys. Well, man, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And, I'm going to be out there. That's our game of the week. We're going to be out there with the cameras and everything. We think that this is going to be possibly the game of the year early on. So, we're excited. I'm sure you guys are excited. And thank you for your time, man.
All right. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. Transitioning over to this week, Damon, I mean, we got a game that everything that we wanted for a while. This is Armageddon. This is packed stands, tailgating. Everything that we love about football is going to be on Friday night, man, because we're talking about Damascus going to QO. Anybody knows this area knows that that's an epic A-card matchup. I look at this game and I see two teams that are ready to distance themselves from the other one. I think that Damascus, I think they're trying to prove to everybody that they should only be in discussion of number 1 and number 2. I don't think that they're thinking in their minds, hey, we shouldn't be even in discussion for number 3. And QO was sitting at number 3 right now, and they're saying, hey, not only should you be in the discussion of number 3, we think that we should be in discussion for number 1. I think it's going to be a good game. I'm interested to hear, what do you think about the matchups this week and in that game, and who do you think we should be watching for, and what kind of schemes and things like that do you think that we should be looking for?
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much said it. This is potential game of the year, not only in Montgomery County, but in the state of Maryland and the DMV. All eyes will be on the Cougar Dome this Friday. The atmosphere, I'm not going out on a limb and saying this, but it's going to be electric. I know that's a cliche term, but that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Damascus always travels well. The visitor side is going to be packed. Obviously, a Quince Orchard home game, the entire community is going to be there.
Right.
The track's going to be full. There's going to be people outside trying to peek through the trees. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. I know the kids, the coaches, everybody involved is extremely excited and pumped up for this game. I think for Quince Orchard, we got a little taste of what they're going to try to do to Damascus, versus what they did this past weekend against Whitman. I didn't say it in my recap, but I wanted to highlight the offensive line for the Quince Orchard Cougars. They kept the quarterback Knight literally, just clean.
Right.
You can always tell, how a game's going looking at, certain players' uniforms. And he was 100% clean. Like,
right.
Not a grass stain on him. Like they didn't even come close to touching him when he was dropping back. And in the running game, again, rarely were the running backs touched until they reached the second level. If you can do that, I mean, that's a recipe for success. If your safeties are going to sneak up, run support, and your DBs are constantly looking in the backfield because they know they're going to have to come up and possibly make a hit because the defensive line just cannot get off their blocks. And that's a testament to Coach Oswald over at Quince Orchard.
Absolutely.
He really has that offensive line clicking. I mean, it's hard to explain without seeing it, but they just seem like at a different level in their first 2 games. That's the strength for Quince Orchard versus Damascus. Their interior line versus the skill positions for Damascus. It's kind of funny. This year, there has not been a lot of talk about Jalen Christian, even though, he's literally one of the best athletes in the state. All the talk has been about young Mr. Jake Funk, and for good reason.
Absolutely.
On both sides of the ball,
Right.
Now, granted, it hasn't been against the best competition, but he literally has 8 carries for 6 touchdowns.
Yeah.
No matter who that's against, I mean that's ridiculous. So
man.
obviously for Quince Orchard, that's something they're going to have to focus on in the running game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And with Jalen Christian, I mean, he can literally line up anywhere on the field, offense, defense, special teams. I mean, plug him into a position, and he will most likely dominate. So it'll be real interesting to see what Damascus has in store. I don't expect them to deviate much from the game plan. I think it's just going to be, let's line up and see who's the bigger man.
Yeah.
And it's going to be electric. I expect this game to be a replay of last year, coming down to the last second of the last quarter. With that being said, I think where Quince Orchard, outside of the interior line, I think Quince Orchard also has the edge when it comes to the kicking game and special teams.
Right.
And again, I touched on this in week 1 with Clarksburg. Depth, I think, is going to come into play.
Right.
A lot of the Damascus players are going to be playing the entire game both ways, and that may have an effect coming into the fourth quarter. Quince Orchard has a huge roster. They're constantly rotating guys in and out. It will, and it's just going to be a question whether those 2s and 3s can keep focus. Because I will say this: when they came in the second half versus Whitman, it was a noticeable drop off. They gave up that huge touchdown pass to the Whitman tight end.
Right.
And if they do that against Damascus, it's going to be a long evening. So everybody's going to have to play their role and step up and stay focused. This is serious business. This is going to be a huge game. So one of two things: either Gaithersburg is going to be jumping and partying all night Friday, or it's going to be real quiet.
Right. I mean, Jake Funk. I mean, he's just been on a tear, and we heard about him all summer, and he's just basically living up to everything that we talked about with him. He's making himself into a little legend over there and putting his mark onto the Damascus program. QO is the most vulnerable right now, is in the secondary. I think that they have some issues back there. They lost just about every single person from last season. And versus Clarksburg, they didn't perform up to par. The kid Tavis Holland got behind the Quince Orchard secondary pretty regularly. And Jalen Christian, obviously, being on the outside and being an explosive kid, I think that he is going to present a very similar matchup to what Tavis did, week 1. So I'm going to see whether Quince Orchard has shored that up or not. Now, the other question is, can the Damascus quarterback take advantage of whatever lack in the defense that Quince Orchard may have? Can Damascus quarterback take advantage of it? And that's going to be the real question right there. I think that Damascus is going to have to deal with Adam. Week 1, I think that Adam, he had a decent game, but I don't think he had the game that he wanted to have. And I think that this is a big-time game. A lot of people are going to be at it. I think that he's going to want to set his mark. So those are the things I'm looking at. I don't know, Damon. It's too close for me to pick, honestly. It's one of those things where there's both teams got advantages, both teams got disadvantages. I'm really, honestly, Mike is going to get mad at me. I can't pick it. I'm sorry. Just can't do it.
Well, you can't pick the game.
I can't.
Seriously?
I can't pick it, man. I'm sorry. I don't know who.
That's fine.
I don't know who to
I'll
pick.
pick the game.
Okay.
How about that?
Okay. How about that? Okay. Go ahead. Pick the game.
So, with everything we know going in, I'm going with Quince Orchard.
Right.
18-14.
That's a solid pick, man. I like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm going with my gut here from everything I've seen and heard. I mean, obviously, Damascus is a solid team, but I mean, the Quince Orchard, we said it multiple times over the years. They don't rebuild, they reload, and they have definitely reloaded this year. And here's the thing that I don't think we've really talked about. With the new coaching staff, with Coach Kelly and the staff he's put together, it's a little bit different than your typical Quince Orchard team.
Right.
For all the old heads out there, if you look at this team play, it's
Seneca
almost
Valley.
a hybrid.
Yeah.
It's a hybrid of the old Seneca Valley Sherwood team.
Yeah.
And I think that's obvious. Obviously, that goes to the coaching staff.
Yeah.
So you got a lot of football knowledge over there from Coach Kelly all the way down with all the assistant coaches. So there's some wrinkles in there that have yet to be pulled out, and I'm pretty positive we're going to see something new from Quince Orchard that they have not shown at any point this year that they're saving just for Damascus.
I'm pretty sure that last week they probably didn't show a lot, put a lot on tape.
They didn't need to.
Yeah, and they didn't need to. So I'm pretty sure they, Coach Kelly got something in the hip, in the hip pocket that he's going to be pulling out for the Hornets. And man, you know what? Okay, this is what we're going to do. I had Damascus. I had Jalen Christian on the show, right? Jake Funk on, he's going to be on this show right here. I'm going to pick Damascus because, to show love to the podcast, we haven't had any of your boys on, Damon. What's going on with that?
I'll work on that.
We haven't had any of your boys on, So because they show so much love to the podcast, man, I'm going to go with Damascus 17, QO 14. That's what I'm going with. There you go.
All right.
Yeah.
It's on the books.
It's on the books. It is what it is. I'm going to get some stares when I walk in, but it's okay. We're grown people. We can keep it moving. But anyways.
Absolutely.
The other game, and when you have the King's Trophy as the other game, pretty damn good week. So,
absolutely.
So we have the King's Trophy. We got Seneca Valley and Northwest here, and I think, like I said, I can't judge Seneca Valley right now. I can't. There's no way I can. It would be irresponsible for me to say that they're a bad team, and it would be irresponsible for me to say that they're a great team right now. I can't go either way. So when I look at this situation, I just gotta say, hey, I gotta sit here and wait. But in my opinion, I think that Northwest is gonna come out, and I think they're gonna keep on rolling, man. I think I got Northwest in a game where it's gonna be 30, 35, 21. I think Northwest is going to jump out to early lead. I think that Seneca Valley is going to come back, make it interesting in the second half. But ultimately, a late touchdown, and field goal in the fourth is going to put the game away for the Jaguars. And I think that Northwest, and honestly, I would have picked this game to be in Northwest's favor, maybe pretty much no matter what. But just the way that Seneca has looked, I don't see any way I can pick, Seneca right now. But, that's just me.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's a rivalry game, and it's the truest sense of a rivalry game. They've been rivals since the doors opened at Northwest almost 2 decades ago.
Right.
So with that being said, the rivalry games tend to be tricky sometimes. Some weird things really happen, but I don't see that being the case this week. From what we've seen on the field, Northwest is clicking on all cylinders on offensive, defense. Has not given up a score this year. Averaging about 45, 44 points a game. If everything's the same, what we've seen, especially if Seneca Valley just comes out flat like they've had the past 2 weeks, it could be over by halftime, which would and then
Right.
you'd be sad in such a storied rivalry like this. But
Right.
regardless, I'm going with Northwest. I have them winning 35-7.
Another thing that we gotta also throw in there for Senegal Valley, they are winning their games. You remember, but some of our viewers might not remember the Ohio State team that won the national championship. I believe that was like 2000 or 2001. With Maurice Claret and all those guys.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, I mean,
I won a lot of money off of that game.
yeah. I mean, but if you remember that team, I mean, there were almost 5, 6 times where we thought they were going to lose during the regular season in the Big Ten. Um, it's not like they were blowing out every single team. They had some clunkers in there, but they won. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about winning. I'll give them credit for that. It's just for me, I just can't get to the point where I can say they're a great team yet. And I can't say that they're bad. I just gotta wait until this week to see how they perform, and if they performing well, then go forward like that. Transitioning over to the other games this week. We already talked about Damascus and Quince Orchard. We already talked about Northwest and Senegal Valley. Very interesting game, Damon. Is Clarksburg, number 4 Clarksburg, going to Gaithersburg? Obviously, Gaithersburg kind of had a clunker versus Sherwood. They're dominant versus Watkins Mill. From all reports, Watkins Mill is, struggling. So, with that being said, do you think that Gaithersburg has enough to make Clarksburg sweat a little bit in this game, or if not, beat Clarksburg in this game?
No, I think Clarksburg's on a mission. They played their hearts out in week 1 versus Quince Orchard, came up short, and they made a statement last week. To me personally, Springbrook is a lot better than that 33-0 shutout indicates, which just shows you how focused Clarksburg is on both sides of the ball. I expect this matchup to go similar to Clarksburg's game versus Springbrook this past weekend. I got them winning 28-7, and just moving forward for the rest of the season. Clarksburg is they still have a sour taste in their mouth from that week 1 loss. Everyone over there thinks that they could and should have won that game. They just had some bad bounces, some untimely turnovers.
Right.
They were right there. They were literally right there. But with that being said, Gaithersburg is just catching them on the wrong week. And as much as no coach wants to hear this, or any player, that loss may have been, the thing Clarksburg needed. I expect them, at least for the next 2 weeks, to be, the dominant team a lot of people thought they were going to be coming into the season. They'll get another shot at that bellwether win in 3 weeks versus Damascus, but for the time being, Gaithersburg, I don't think it's going to be pretty.
Talking about Sherwood, they're facing Springbrook, and this is an interesting game for me because similar to Clarksburg, I feel like Sherwood wants to beat Springbrook worse than Clarksburg beat Springbrook last week. They're coming off a win that a lot of people felt was a disappointing kind of win, which there's no such thing, but that's the feeling that you got. I feel like Sherwood is going to bounce back from a lackluster performance where they weren't executing at the level that they want to execute. I think they're going to bounce back here and they're going to win 35-0. Springbrook struggles to score, and that's their biggest problem. They have a decent defense. They just struggle to score. So I don't see them scoring on Sherwood. The last 2 weeks, Sherwood has only let up 2 touchdowns in both games combined. Other than that, they've pretty much shut both opponents down. And versus this team, a team that struggles to score, I feel like they're going to shut them out. I got this game 35-0. And I got Sherwood kind of getting back that momentum and heading into Senegal Valley in a few weeks. That's the way I see it. How do you see it, Damon?
Yeah, I'm right with you. I look at Sherwood in the same vein as Clark. I look at Sherwood in the same vein as Clarksburg. They're still in the upper tier of the teams in Montgomery County, but they have a chip on their shoulder. They know that the population at large expects a little bit more than them than your average team, and they know they can perform better, and they want a huge statement game. A win versus Springbrook. It'll propel them in the right direction. Going forward, you're right. They're exactly in the same boat and trajectory as Clarksburg. They have this week and the the week after, 2 winnable games, but games that you want to make a statement. You want to basically step on your opponent's throat, because Sherwood has a huge matchup in week 5 versus Seneca Valley. So this is a time to get everything straight and put the rest of the county on notice. I have Sherwood winning 35-8.
Okay, absolutely. Next game that I want to bring up, and we didn't expect this game to be a game that we were going to be talking about, but Churchill going to Wooten, both undefeated 2-0, both had basically the same opponents. Churchill, I would say, looked better than Wooten in those cross matchups. How do you feel about this game? I feel like the winner of this game has a chance, and when you look at the schedules, both teams kind of have some easier wins than a lot of teams in the county. But Churchill actually has Damascus, Paint Branch, and QO on their schedule. So this is very important for Churchill.
Oh, it's a very important game, regardless of the team's records. Similar to Northwest and Seneca Valley, this is a rivalry game.
Right.
Over the decades, this has always been a well-attended, hard-fought matchup, regardless of the team's records. A lot of these kids know each other, grew up together, league football together. So this is going to be a good matches, regardless. Though in the fact that they're 2-0, they're both sitting on top of Moco South 4A. The winner has sole possession of the lead in that division, and going into the season, either team would have loved to know they're going to be in this position. Especially Wooten, we had no idea what we had going into the season, and Churchill in a similar fashion. They were coming off an abysmal 2013 campaign, so this is a solid matchup, and regardless of what the other teams are doing, the winner is going to be 3-0, and that's all you want.
Right.
You're undefeated through the season. That's excellent. And my hat's off to both coaching staffs, because like we talked in our preseason report, we really had no idea how these teams were gonna work it out, but they figured it out, especially over at Churchill. They got 2 shutouts. They're not against the most quality opponents, but still, they're putting points on the board, and the defense is holding stout. With that being said, I have Churchill winning the game on the road versus their rival. Final score, 32-14.
Yeah, I like that score. I think that Churchill has a kid on their team, Blake Dove, that when he's right and he's healthy, maybe the best linebacker in this county. You can make an argument. One of the best players in the county by far. When you have that kind of player and some nice pieces around him, you could see Churchill maybe being a team that could surprise some people. You laughed at me earlier this month when I said that, hey, keep an eye on Churchill when it comes on to the Elite Six.
I did.
I'm not saying they're gonna definitely be in there. I'm just saying keep your eyes on them. The stuff they had to go through. Moving forward, Rockville versus Einstein. Rockville's 1-1, Einstein's 0-2. What do you think about this matchup? Rockville coming off a disappointing loss, where they thought that this might be the crowning moment in their history. And Einstein, 0-2, they are trying to rebuild. There's a chance that we can see what we saw last year, which was a straight up shootout.
Unfortunately not. Einstein, from what I'm hearing, has several starters out, as many as 6. It's just some bad timing. And Rockville's coming off of a hard-fought battle versus Seneca Valley. They were 100% in the game going into the third quarter. They just their offense got shut down. That's all there is to it. So I expect the Rockville Rams to come out guns a-blazing once again. And given Einstein's injuries and, it's just not a good recipe for the Titans this week. I have Rockville winning 42-7. Those potential injuries are a killer for Einstein. They're a team that just can't afford to have, multiple starters out. And when you're talking about as many as 6,
right?
They're not built to overcome that kind of adversity at this time. So
right.
It's just tough luck for the Einstein Titans. And I expect Rockville to keep on rolling and putting up big numbers, chucking the ball all over the field.
Yeah.
But and let me say this about Rockville, even though they lost that game versus Seneca Valley, looked better. The offense, even though they only put up 14 points and Chuck Reese was held well below his average, they looked okay. And given their schedule in Montgomery County 3A,
right,
they're gonna be in the hunt when we get to the later stages of the season, when we start trying to look forward and predict who's going to make the playoffs. They're going to be in the conversation.
No, absolutely.
And that's a good thing.
Blair going to Northwood. Now, on the surface, you might be thinking, hey, this is not much of a game. But the reason why I'm keeping my eye on this one is because Blair is trying to build consistency. Great programs are consistent week in and week out. And, I'm a Virginia Tech fan. I'm hurting right now.
That was a rough one.
Yeah. But I bring up that painful, excruciating loss to East Carolina. Yeah. Because it's about consistency. You can't go out and play well versus Ohio State and then I'll lose to East Carolina next week. That's not what great programs do. Great programs are able to stay at whatever level that is. It might not be a championship level, but it could be just a nice, decent level. Whatever it is, right? And I think that Blair needs to come out and get that consistency going. Started out with Northwood, beat the brakes off of Northwood, and go from there. And honestly, the reason why I think that Blair needs to be a little bit worried about Northwood is because it's not like Northwood has no athletes or anything like that. Northwood has athletes. Fofi Bazzi is a kid that I've talked about. Keon Giles, they have athletes. So if Blair comes out there thinking, hey, we almost beat Sherwood, so I got Blair 28, Northwood 3, and I got Blair coming out there with a solid victory over. And honestly, Damon, you talked about the rivalry games. This is a rivalry. A lot of people don't understand that. They both schools reside on the same street. You can basically walk to one school or the other, depending on which one you're coming from. The Battle of the Boulevard, I believe they call it. So this is a rivalry game. It's almost like a little brother, big brother kind of thing. Again, a lot of these kids know each other. So it's going to be interesting. I think that's just a game to watch out for. All right, guys. That's all the time we got for today. Go out to the games again. I've heard great things about the attendance this year. I've heard great things about how excited people have been about Montgomery County football. everybody come out to the game, support the guys, support the team, support the coaches, because they feed off your energy, man. And it's always great to get that into Montgomery County football, that electric atmosphere. This is the Mocofootball.com podcast. My name's Kevin. That's Damon.
So, before we go, I want to give a shout out to the Magruder Colonels.
Hey, there we go.
And Coach Fowl over there in Gaithersburg. They got their first win in almost a year.
Hey.
This past weekend, great job by the Colonels. They knocked off Wheaton 19-12.
Beautiful.
That's what we're talking about. Good job, kids. Good job, coaching staff.
Beautiful.
Excellent. I'm really happy for you guys. Good job.
And we're not mocking in any way. We're being dead serious.
No.
We're being sincere. Dead serious here. Like, you know, you don't understand what it. Anybody that's been a part of any kind of losing understands how hard it is to lose in football. I'm not saying it's easy to lose in other sports, but these kids are out there banging and hitting just as hard as QO and Damascus, and then they're going and they're losing every week. So imagine having your son or somebody that you care about going through that week in and week out. It will be tough, right? And so it's just great to hear about, you know, them having success, them actually getting a win on the board, and, you know, finally that week of preparation amounts to a victory. And anytime you go through football, I'm not saying that if you lose, it doesn't amount to anything. What I'm trying to say is that in the short term, you like to, after going through a week of preparation, come out with a win. For them to go out and do that, I was very happy and very pleased. And great call, Damon. And, you know, we got a few teams out there that are searching for their first win. Hope you guys get it this week. And, yeah, this is the Mocofootball.com podcast. Go out to the games. Enjoy yourselves. Mocofootball.com podcast. See you next week.